people now know Newcastle. They know it's on the map. They know it's, the beauty of it. They know its employment. They know that, the rich history of it. We're now getting buyers from, Tamworth, Dubbo, Wagga, Melbourne, Queensland. A lot of people have now got Newcastle on the radar from an investment point of view, but also people looking at retiring, with the health system that we've got here and the facilities we've got, people are really looking at that as a solid foundation for when they do get older. That sort of migration we're just seeing more and more of. So that just keeps Newcastle on the map and keeps it attractive. We're looking at some high-end, property. So it's not cash flow positive. We're looking at the capital growth on those properties rather than the some of the lower properties that might be cash flow positive. But looking at from a tax bracket point of view, high income earners can certainly use that as an advantage. We're using past capital growth and rental growth, obviously, with our assumptions. Now, you should take that with a grain of salt as well. We're using past performance to predict or to help predict what's happening. Holding property is a long-term investment. I think the golden rule is if you don't have to sell property, you don't lose money. If you have to sell property, that's when you could lose money. So if you've got a long-term strategy, it's part of your investment portfolio, and it's a consideration that you've got with your accountant and your financial planner. I think it's obviously a solid transaction. So and that negative gearing is part of your investment strategy.
As assets wear out over time, the same way in a business where a photocopier or a computer or anything that produces income wears out over time, you can claim that loss as a deduction. The exact same thing works for a rental property, a commercial building, anything that's producing income. So a rental property, and even look around in here, all the flooring, the lighting, the curtains, the air conditioning, all those assets have their own effective life as set by the ATO. And what we do as quantity surveyors is we value those assets and calculate a loss for the owner over time. And we do that per financial year until they run out. There's two main sides. As you can see on that graph up there, there's the plant and equipment, which gets less and less over time. And then the building write-off, or technically the Division 43, which stays flat line over time. The building write-off is like the structural component of the building. It's claimed at 2.5% of what's left of the total construction cost minus the plant and equipment per year for 40 years. Each asset, hot water systems, light fittings, blinds, cooktops, range hoods, they all have their own effective life. Set by the ATO, managed by a tax ruling. So we then work out the value of those assets and write them off. And we use a diminishing value method and a prime cost method. This calculation's the diminishing value, which you can see because the plant and equipment is getting less and less over time. The best thing about depreciation is it's a bonus deduction. It's a non-cash deduction. So unlike interest and rates and insurance and all those things, is an expense going out. Depreciation's there to be claimed. If you claim it or not, it's up to you, but it's there and it's not an expense. So it's like a bonus deduction on top of all those deductions that add to the cash flow. Why it's so valuable to the investor? Because every dollar we come up with, depending on what marginal rate you pay, if that's 40 cents in the dollar, that's 40 cents for that dollar back in your pocket. So if we come up with $10,000 worth of deductions, that's $4,000 in real cash or reduced tax liability for the owner. The way we gear our schedules, and the name of the game is to get as much as we can depreciating as quick as we can to increase cash flow in those early years, and then it levels out. But the name of the game is to get as much as we can in that first column there, plant and equipment. And that's where we come in. We go through a building with a fine-tooth comb. We identify everything that we can, right down to the toilet seat, the roll holders, the air conditioner, everything. We'll document that. We'll put a value on it based on, a true value that we can separate out from the total construction cost, and we calculate that deduction until it runs out. Another great thing about apartments is the common areas. So each owner has a percentage of ownership over the common areas. We work that out with the unit entitlement, the complete aggregate that's in the strata plan. We do all of that for you. We calculate the proportion that each property investor or each owner in a particular building owns we value all the assets in the common area, and that includes big ticket items like lifts and you know, the individual level air conditioning. All of these common areas that you can see, we put a value on those assets, even some of the signage you can see around the place, the CCTV, everything, and we calculate the portion of ownership, and you can write that off as well over time. And we include that all in one basic schedule that shows you at each financial year until it runs out. It's a one-off product. You get that done once, unless you do a big renovation, you really don't need to get that depreciation schedule again. It'll last for 40 years for the lifetime of the property. So this plant and equipment side, when those assets are considered previously used, the next owner can't actually claim those assets. So you can still claim the structural component, but as soon as an asset becomes, the tax office call it previously used, but it's basically secondhand. So what you'd typically see on a 2-bedroom apartment is in those first few years about half the deduction. So you'd only be able to claim if an apartment was bought and then it's sold to another owner, that new owner, that second owner, can only claim that 8458 if this was an example of their scenario. Whereas a brand new property, you get full freight on everything. And that goes for everything through the common area as well. But that is only the plant and equipment assets. Older assets mean the value's a little bit lower and there's less life left on them.
We're seeing fixed rates going up as well, so that's usually an indicator as well of where variable rates are heading. Regarding what type of loans do investors favour and why? Well, there's interest-only loans, there's principal and interest loans. It all depends on the age and the personal circumstances of each borrower. So interest-only, as it says, you're paying the interest only, you're not paying down the principal. Principal and interest, you're paying down both. Both have got their own benefits, and it's on advice from your accountant or financial planner as to which way to go.
Yep.
Leveraging off existing equity to purchase, that's a common thing you can do if you hold a property where you've got equity in it and you want to utilise that equity or value to buy into an investment property. We can structure loans against that for tax purposes to make it easy for deductibility on the loans.
We've got some rents. Now the rents, from the GWH team, they are renting these out. They're real rents. So it's we've done a very general example, but we've put in some real numbers in that. And look, in this particular project, there was 193 apartments and 70% owner occupied.
Yep.
So that's a great. It's always a good test for a project to see, and especially if you're investing, you don't want a whole heap of investors. You want to be the ones that actually invest in that project. So you haven't got a heap of vacancy, or you're stuck by other people's rents. So great. This, obviously we're here. We've seen what a great project this is, and the great facilities here. And I think that's investing here is obviously a no-brainer. But seek financial advice, Chris. So we've got another little project over at Georgetown, and this to show the diversity of some of the stock we've got at the moment. 23 apartments there, only 10% are investors, so mostly owner occupiers are moving into those ones. They're downsizing from the larger houses in that area, and I think we can safely say pretty much all of those buyers are from a 5k radius from that actual project. So that's been a great little project, and people moving in there love it. So if you're looking for something more in the suburbs, that's a different price point again. And Macquarie Tower. So this was finishing up our projects up there at Charlestown. This was 53 apartments up there at Charlestown with commercial and mixed use underneath. Again, these come with 2 car parks, so a little bit different, and the returns there are still great for the price. The average price of $870 for some stock up there. That's $705, and there's some great tax depreciation, which I won't get Noel to go into, but there's some great benefits up there as well. So Again, these are fully dependent on your own situation, your own tax bracket, your own investment strategies. We won't go into that in depth because it's going to be different for everyone, but we've given that for you to take away and have a good chat to your accountant and your financial planners as well.
It's good to point out with all these projects that Matt's talking about, they roughly were around 2.5 years of completion from we started marking the properties. The ranges that we're giving from our property management team for estimates of what they were going to rent for were completely different to when it was finished. And that just came down to the uniqueness. So when we talk about capital growth on you buy something for this at this dollar and you sell it for this if you flip it later on, and what it's valued when it's finished, the capital growth's also in the rent that you're getting from the original quote that you would have gotten. But what we found in particular with One, and even Mac Tower because of the rooftops, but with the amenities that One has that most of you probably know of, as soon as potential tenants came and looked at building like this, the rents just went straight up. So to getting 2-bedroom with 2-bathroom and 1 car on level 7, it's the level 7 facing south, and $990 a week is our most recent one. It just goes to show you the growth that you're going to have when it comes to the quality of the building that you're in, and that's where the uniqueness comes into the capital growth. From talking to the team, that probably the last maybe 3, 4 or 5 have lasted 2 days, 3 days. The most recent one was in One Apartments, was on level 16 or 17, and that was the owner wanted $1,350 a week, and we had someone off market that we already had on our books that took it straight away. So we've actually got a bank of people waiting for One Apartments, and we actually did before it was completed. So most of, same with Sky Residence, which was about 4 years ago, we manage around 30 in there and about 35 in here. And with our off the plan, we've noticed that we'll have a bank of tenants that will inquire before it's finished. And usually that happens when the scaffolding starts to come down and we get that inquiry. But with One in particular, not long. Macquarie Tower is the same thing. As soon as it goes on the market, it's gone within probably 3 to 4 days. I think it's roughly around 2.5 years was an average, and they're averaging around that 25 to 28% capital growth. The one recently in One that we've resold, they paid $955 for it 2.5 years ago, and we just sold it for $1.35. It's a great investment to look at your capital growth because we've got multiple investors that will buy off the plan, and in 2 years' time, they've got the capital growth or the equity to go and buy off the plan again. So over a 10-year period, they've probably got about 5 to 6 apartments that they're banking up. Off the plan is a great investment. You just got to be patient and wait for it to be built. But we've got a few investors on that journey with us at the moment that are doing great, really good numbers out of it.
Certainly, with my associations with GWH has been for, probably 10 plus years now, and more because of the runs on the board of the quality of what you get. I was only commenting to Pete and to Matt. I was at the off the plan night for this very building. How many years ago is that? Probably around 3 years ago, and the concept pictures that were on the screen with the view and everything. And I thought, it's going to be pretty hard to get to that, and the view's better than what it was. Like, it's pretty spectacular. So I think what I'm seeing is certainly an influx of people buying off the plan in Newcastle.
I think there's certain people too that can't picture an apartment, looking at a plan. So I think some people find it quite hard to purchase off the plan, not seeing what it is. But I think the good thing with buying from GWH is you can come up and see the finished product already. So you can see what we've done in the past, and it only gets better each time. So when you come up and see this, it sort of de-risks that decision to buy off the plan. So I think it's, we've got plenty of projects to show people these days, and happy to come up and show off what we've done. So it certainly de-risks it a bit from that point of view.
Yeah, and it's interesting if you look at say 5 years ago, the amount of off-the-plan developments that were being built or being sold at the time compared to what it is now is chalk and cheese. And I think a lot of people are more educated in what it's like for buying an investment off the plan, not just from capital growth, but what the city's going to look like. And we get questions from off the plan a lot from investors and owner-occupiers that, talk about strata fees and when do they go up and things like that. And we always answer it is the way it depends on the quality of the building, because you do have warranty for a certain amount of time, but as soon as that 8 to 10 year kicks in and that's gone, you want to be in a building that has good quality. And that's, I suppose, that's where GWH, being biased here, but it does set apart from everywhere else, and we know that. But at the moment, with everything that's happening at the moment with off the plan, if you look at a map of what's being sold off the plan at the moment and what buildings are here, GWH is about 43% market share in buildings that we're about to build. So that just is testament to the whole team at GWH, but the forecasting and the planning. And it's good that it's local developer, local builder, and the vertical integration of making a lot of the product that makes the building, like all the concrete, for example. So that's just one part of it. And I think that's where the confidence comes into it. So whether you're buying existing off us or you're buying off the plan, there's always a lot of choice and options around that.
Thanks again for spending your time with us tonight, and appreciate it. Thank you.